They found the ships at dawn, dark shapes sliding out of the gray eastern haze like a row of teeth biting up through the sea. From the highest balcony of the Tower of the Sun, Arianne Martell watched them come, leaning into the sea breeze until it tangled her hair and bit at her eyes. The morning was all soft colors, pearl and rose and the pale blue of a child's dream. But the line of galleys marching toward Sunspear was hard and black and real. "Dragons," Tyene had said when the first raven came, or Sel's words, "who fly dragons for banners." "It amounts to the same thing, cousin." Now Arianne could see the banners for herself, snapping in the wind atop the tallest masts. Black fields, a three-headed dragon red as fresh spilled blood. Beside them flew a line of yellow silk that caught the light like molten coin, the striding golden man of the Golden Company. There were other flags as well, strange sigils she did not know, but those two were the ones that mattered. A dead prince's banner, and the memory of a dead rebellion. "Princess," Ario Hodoa's voice rumbled behind her, low and steady as distant thunder. "Your father asks that you come below. The prince is weary. He will sit the audience hall from his chair rather than from this wind." "Tell him he should sit from his bed," Arianne said, not taking her eyes from the ships. "He drives himself too hard. He drives himself as far as he must." Ario stepped closer, ducking his great shaggy head to clear the archway. His long axe rested against his shoulder like a sleeping thing. "He says he will not have his daughter greet a dragon prince from the battlements with hair in her eyes. The hall, princess, before our guests make the pier." Her fingers found the warm stone of the parapet and clenched for a heartbeat. She had waited so many years for her father to move. Plots hidden from her, promises made to dead siblings, quiet words and slower action. And now, at last, the dragon had come to Dorne, and Doran Martell insisted on propriety. "Very well," she sighed. "If the prince is to be greeted from a chair, I will see that the chair at least looks like a throne." She swept past Ario, skirts whispering, her sandals slapping lightly on the stair as she descended. The tower spiraled down, past arched windows that gave her quick knife-blade glimpses of the harbor as it woke to the invasion. The glimmer of oars, the bustle of sails, the frantic darting of small boats like minnows before a shark. "Elia's son," the raven had said. Arianne had crumpled that first scrap of parchment in her fist until her nails bit her palm. Elia's son, the boy whose skull had been dashed against a wall, whose blood had run down the steps of Maegor's Holdfast. A ghost conjured across years and leagues, presented now at her father's call. If he is true, if he is not another lie. She had learned all her life what lies could cost. The audience hall of Sunspear had been dressed like a bride when she reached it. Gold and orange and red silks flowed down the walls, Dorne's colors woven through with threads of black that shimmered when the light struck. The great chair at the head of the hall had been raised upon a low platform and draped in striped cushions. Incense curled in the air, sharp and sweet, drowning the salt stink that rode up from the sea. Prince Doran sat wrapped in his shawls, his thin hands resting on the arms of his chair. His face was all hollows and shadows now, age and pain carving him down to something fine and brittle. Only his eyes remained as she remembered them from childhood. Soft, dark pools that saw everything and gave back nothing. "You were on the tower?" he asked as she approached. "I was, father." Arianne kissed his cheek, felt the heat beneath his papery skin. "They fly the dragon of House Targaryen and the banners of the Golden Company. No lions, no stags, no krakens. Only Sel's words and ghosts." "Ghosts can be dangerous," Doran said. "Ask any maester. A story that people believe can carve deeper than steel." "And do you believe this story?" she asked, smoothing a wrinkle in his shawl as if she had never stopped being angry with him in the first place. Elia's son, plucked from blood and fire like a boy from a cradle, Rhaegar's heir, raised in secret, returned when it pleases Varys to loose him. A spark lit behind his eyes at that name. "There was a time, my daughter, when all we had were stories and promises. We waited for another prince, do you recall? A silver-haired boy whose sister wed your uncle far from here. We waited for his sails, for his banners, for his dragons. We waited until waiting killed your uncle and your brother both. And now this one comes instead. Now this one comes instead. Doran's fingers tightened on the woven armrest. You will greet him, Arianne. You will smile. You will listen. You will see the truth of him as best you can. It is past time Dorne stopped waiting and chose. Chose what? Chose where to lay its vengeance, he said softly. On which dragon's shoulders to set our long patience. Her mouth was dry. You mean to wed me to him? I mean to consider it, he replied. If he is who they say, if he is worthy of you and of Dorne, there are other paths if he is not. I will not hand you to a fraud, no matter whose colors he wears. Good, Arianne said. Her heart was beating harder than it should, and her palms felt damp. I would hate to shame you, father, by strangling a false dragon in the marriage bed. Prince Doran smiled, just a little. My fierce girl, go now. They will be at the pier, and it would not do to leave a prince waiting. She took her place beside him as the hall filled. Nobles from every corner of Dorne, their faces sharp and watchful beneath bright patterned scarves and veils. House Euler leaned together like coiled snakes. Ironwood men stood stiff and dour, their lord. Exile silent in the corner he had been granted. The Fowlers had the air of hawks that had scented prey. And in the shadows, quiet as dust, the spies and whispered knives who served her father's will. Elia's son, they said. Rhaegar's boy. Arianne's fingers brushed the knife she had hidden in her sleeve. The simple little thing with the narrow blade that no one would notice. Just in case. The doors boomed open. He came in with the light at his back, so for a heartbeat all she saw was the outline. Slim, straight-backed, a sword strapped at his hip, dark hair windswept. The man beside him was all hard plains and scars, older, with graying red hair and a face that would have been handsome if not for the hollows of sickness beneath the skin. Prince Doran of House Martell, the herald cried. May I present Aegon Targaryen, called the sixth of his name, son of Prince Rhaegar and Princess Elia of Dorne, and his sworn man, Lord John Connington of Griffin's Roost. The older man's eyes raked the hall, weighing every face. The younger walked forward alone. His hair was dark, almost black, but when the sun from the high windows found it, she saw the glint of indigo, like midnight pooled in water. His eyes were the color of amethyst she had once admired in the markets of Norvos, a bright, unnatural purple that should have looked foolish in a man's face, but did not. His features were a mix she could not name at once. High Valyrian cheekbones softened by something Dornish around the mouth, the suggestion of Elia's remembered smile. He wore no crown. His doublet was plain deep blue, embroidered not with dragons, but with a simple band of scales along the collar and cuffs. Yet he carried himself as if a crown hovered above him, invisible but heavy. When he knelt before her father, the hall held its breath. Prince Doran, he said. His voice was clear and steady, without tremor. I was told across half a world that I have no tougher friends than those I might find in Dorne. I have come to see if that is true. No tougher friends, Doran murmured, and no more patient enemies. He lifted a shaking hand lightly. Rise, Prince Aegon. I will not have Elia's son on his knees, not in my hall. Aegon stood. I have wanted to see this place all my life, he said, his eyes traveling the room, taking in the sun-cut patterns on the floor, the carved pillars, the bright faces watching him. When his gaze found Arianne, it caught and held. My mother spoke of Sunspear in the stories they told me. I wished... He broke off, something raw flashing through his eyes before he mastered himself. I wished she had lived to walk these halls again. Failing that, I am glad at least to stand here myself. Smooth, Arianne thought, too smooth by half, but his voice had roughened on that last word, and the way his hand flexed at his side when he spoke of Elia was not feigned. She cannot walk them, Prince Doran said, his voice soft, but her memory does, as does justice owed her. You have come to claim a crown that was your father's. Why should Dorne bend its knee to you when the scars of that crown still ache in our bones? A murmur rippled through the hall. Aerion saw Lord Ironwood's lip curl, Lord Euler's eyes gleam. "Because I know those scars," Aegon said, and his voice sharpened. "Because they were burned into my family first. Because my mother died screaming while no one came to help her. Because my sister's skull was shattered beneath a sworn knight's hand. Because my blood stained the walls of the Red Keep." "You stand here whole," murmured Lady Nemella Toland. "You speak very prettily for someone whose skull is in pieces." "I know what you have been told," Aegon answered, turning to her at once. "I have heard that story all my life. I have woken from it choking on blood that is not mine. The man who raised me kept that tale sharp in my mind so that I would never forget what was taken from me and from you." His gaze flicked to Jon Connington, and something fierce and grateful moved there. "If you doubt that I am Elaya's son, test me. Ask me anything of her. Search me for the marks she left. Or deny that she ever lay with Rhaegar and bore him a boy with eyes like this." He touched his own face, the corner of his mouth quirking as he did. It was almost a jest, almost a challenge. Aerion stepped forward before she quite realized she was moving. "Tell me of her," she said, and the hall seemed to lean with her. "Tell us all something only a son of Elia of Dorne would know." Purple eyes met brown. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that point of contact. "She used to hum when she read," Aegon said at last. The words came slowly, as if he were pulling them from some deep place. "She loved stories, histories, songs, silly tales about fools. She would hold the book in her lap and forget the world around her. Her fingers tapped when she traced the lines. She never sang the words aloud, but there was always a hum in her throat, like a bee trapped in summer flowers." He glanced down, one corner of his mouth twisting. "Once, when I was very small, I asked why she made no sound, and yet I heard music. She laughed and told me that meant she was a poor singer and a worse mother, if she had so confused her own child." Arion's chest tightened. It was such a small, strange detail that she almost hated it for the way it reached inside her and curled claws around something tender. Obara's jaw had gone rigid. Nymeria's fixed smile had slipped. "She told you this?" Prince Doran's voice was husky. "I remember it," Aegon said simply. "You remember it from when you were what?" "2. Lady Ironwood scoffed. "I have the same habit," Aegon replied. "Ask Lord Connington how often he has had to tell me to stop humming over a map. I do not say memory is truth. I do not say I can prove to you in this moment that I am who I claim. Can only say, I was raised to be Rhaegar's son. I was taught to love the people he failed. I have crossed seas and spent blood on sellswords to come home, not to sit a gilded chair while others suffer as my mother did." He turned back to Doran and bowed his head, not quite a kneel this time. "I need Dorne's strength," he said, "but I will not demand it. Tell me in plain words what it would take for you to give it willingly. If you wish me to fight for Dorne before Dorne fights for me, say so. If you wish me to wed your daughter, I will consider it, for I am told she is as fierce and as proud as any princess my house has ever known. If you wish me to turn and leave, say that I am not welcome, and I will not raise sword or sail against you." He lifted his gaze, and there it was again, that naked boyish thing. "But if Elaya's kin cast out her son, I will know where I stand in this world." Silence wrapped the hall, thin and hard as glass. Aerion felt all eyes on her, then on her father, then on the dragon boy. They hung there, a three-point balance, anything and everything possible. At length, Prince Doran exhaled. "You speak well," he said. "A little too well. I wonder which of your tutors taught you to bare your throat so prettily." "Lord Connington taught me to swing a sword," Aegon said. "A half-maester taught me my letters. The man called Griff taught me to be wary, and a woman called Lamore taught me to listen. No one ever taught me what to do when my mother's kin looked at me as if I were an imposter in her skin." "You are not in her skin," Aerion said, her voice low. "You are in yours. If you are Elaya's son, prove it with more than stories and a painted banner. Dorne has bled enough for foreign kings. Then let it bleed for its own prince," Aegon answered, not flinching. I will give you battles if that is what you want. I will take your enemies and make them mine. Only tell me which direction to point my sword." Doran Martell's laugh was the sound of dry leaves stirred by a faint wind. "Our enemies?" he murmured. "We have more than we can count. Lions and krakens and stags and sparrows, all pecking at the same corpse. Yet you ask for one direction." He lifted a hand, and his daughter saw it tremble. "Come," he said, "be my guest in Sunspear. Eat our food, drink our wine, sweat beneath our sun. Let my people see you and you them. You and I and my daughter will speak more of swords and crowns when we have had time to look one another in the eye without a hall full of witnesses. For today, let Dorne at least show that it remembers how to be a host." A murmur of disappointment ran through the watchers, nobles and spies alike, at the deferral. Arianne felt it prick at her own impatience. But she saw the relief flicker, brief as a shadow, across Aegon's face. He had met a test and not been turned away. For now, that was enough. He turned to her and bowed, properly this time. "Princess Arianne," he said, "I have heard that the sun itself grows jealous of your beauty." She arched one brow. "And does the sun often speak with Sellsword captains, that they carry its gossip across the sea?" He laughed, sudden and bright. "It speaks with everyone. Some simply listen more closely. I look forward to hearing from your own lips how much of what I have heard is true." "You may be disappointed," Arianne said. "Men who come to Dorne looking for tales often are. Then let us find better tales," he answered, and that reckless, hopeful look flashed again, unguarded and young. She found that she did not altogether hate him for it. Word of the Dragon Prince's landing reached Highgarden as the bees were swarming. Marjorie Tyrell stood in the shade of an ancient oak in the gardens that gave her home its name, watching the air thicken with the gold and black haze of it. The hive keepers moved in slow, careful arcs, cloaks drawn tight, faces veiled. The hum around them rose and fell in waves. "Like a song," she said. Her grandmother snorted beside her. "Like a threat. Anything that moves as one is dangerous, be it bees or men. Remember that, child." "Men are not so easily made to move as one," Marjorie replied. "Not even for love of a king." She regretted the words as soon as they were out, but it was too late to swallow them. Olenna Redwine's sharp old eyes flicked to her, taking in more than the summer dress and garland of fresh plucked olives. They saw the tension in her shoulders, the way her thumb worried at the edge of her sleeve. "Still thinking of the boy?" her grandmother asked. "The king," Marjorie corrected gently. "My husband." "Boy," said Olenna, "and not much of that. Did you think you had wed Rhaegar reborn with his pretty songs and prettier hair? You wed a frightened child with lions at his back and a mother who would cheerfully feed you to the faith to save her own skin. Do not waste tears on him." "I am not wasting tears," Marjorie said. "I am wondering how long his crown will last." "Long enough to cost us if it falls on our heads," Olenna muttered. "Long enough for gossip to turn against you if they whisper you've had yet another husband die young. 4 crowns and 4 funerals is 3 too many." Marjorie pressed her lips together. Joffrey's purple face, Renly's green shadow, the slow, polite farce of the mace of gold in her hair, all danced behind her eyes. "I mean to keep this one alive," she said, "whether the 7 wish it or no." "Good." Her grandmother's gaze shifted then, toward the path where Lord Randall Tarly marched through the dappled light, armored even in the gardens, as if someone might attack him from behind a rosebush. "Mace is with the maester," she said before he could speak. "Being measured for some new coat of embroidery, I expect. I have told him it is unseemly to dress like a peacock when the realm trembles, but he hears what he wishes." "What crisis do you bring us now, Randall?" Tarly bowed, stiff as his own spine. "No crisis yet, my lady, but there is news from Dorne, and it may become one if we are not careful." Marjorie's heart skipped. "Dorne?" Olenna's mouth pursed. "Has Prince Doran finally remembered there is a realm beyond his balconies?" "Ships have landed at Sunspear," Tarly said. "The Golden Company has crossed the narrow sea. With them, a young man who calls himself Aegon Targaryen, son of Prince Rhaegar. They fly a three-headed dragon above their cell's-word banners. A pretender, Marjorie said quickly, before anyone else could. A pretender with 10,000 hardened men, Tarly answered. They say he took Storm's End in the east not long ago in one blow, before turning south. The reports are confused. Some say he went first to the Stormlands, others that he came straight to Dorne. But the latest from King's Landing speaks of Varys loose in the city again, and the Hand dead. The small council is in disarray. It is not inconceivable that this boy may be the instrument the spider has been sharpening all along. The bees hummed louder, or perhaps it was just the blood in Marjorie's ears. If the Golden Company is in Dorne, Olenna said slowly, then Prince Doran must have been expecting them. Her eyes narrowed, calculations spinning behind them. Do we know how he means to play this? She asked. We know nothing, Tarly said. Because we have treated Dorne as a backwater to be managed and not a power to be respected. We sent Myrcella there like a token and forgot her. We allowed Oberyn Martell his place on the small council but never sought his counsel. We let Cersei feud with them while we concerned ourselves with peacocks and feasts. Speak for yourself, Olenna said. Some of us had to attend those feasts to keep the king from choking on more than his wine. Tarly's jaw clenched at the jest. The point is, he said, we are in danger of being flanked. If Dorne and this dragon prince ally, we may find the south closed against us. The boy will have Sellswords, Dornish spears, and the sympathy of every fool who ever dreamt of singing beneath Rhaegar's balcony. The Lannisters are weaker than they look, for all their castles. If the capital falls to this usurper while we march blindly at the Lion's order, the blame will fall on us. Marjorie saw it then, for a breath. The red keep bleeding banners, the sept full of corpses, the people crying out against the woman who had married usurpers and boy kings in turn. Her face in every whisper. What do you propose, Lord Tarly? She asked, her voice carefully level. That we send an envoy south, he said. Someone the Dornish might respect. Someone who can look at this supposed Aegon with clear eyes and decide whether he is a threat, an opportunity, or a fool to be crushed. Do you volunteer yourself? Olenna asked dryly. I volunteer my son, Tarly said. Dickon has a good head on his shoulders and little love for dragons or Dornishmen. He will not be charmed by a purple stare or a pretty story. Then he is ill-suited to diplomacy, Olenna replied. No, Randall. If we mean to speak with Dorne, we must send someone who understands the language of wounded pride. Her gaze slid to Marjorie. Grandmother, Marjorie said, you cannot mean. I mean that you are a queen 3 times over and a woman who knows how to smile with her teeth, Olenna said. You know Sunspear's ways better than that boar of a son-in-law of mine ever did. Did you think I forgot how often you listened at doors when Oberyn and his bastards were here? If Dorne has taken a dragon into its bed, I would have you see how deeply and why, and I would have you see this Aegon for yourself. There is opportunity here, if we are quick enough to take it. Marjorie's throat went dry. I am bound to Tommen, she said, by law and by the Seven. To pluck me from his side now and send me sailing south is to keep your pretty neck from the noose if the city falls and Cersei decides she needs one more scapegoat, Olenna snapped. Do you think that cow of a queen mother will not blame you for the Faith's anger? For Kevin's death? For everything she has broken with her own hands? I would rather have you under a Dornish sun than see you burned by the High Sparrows. Lord Tarly cleared his throat. We cannot simply abandon the boy king. The Reach's honor. Honor is what we call the stories we tell about ourselves, Olenna said. I prefer truth. The truth is, our alliance with the Lannisters has brought us nothing but trouble. If there is a chance to slip the lion's paw and place our girl's crown on a head that is less likely to explode, I will take it. If we move quickly, we might even choose which dragon to back before Daenerys Targaryen deigns to stop playing with freedmen and look west. The name hung in the air like another swarm. Another, Marjorie thought. Another Targaryen with a claim, barely contained, her arms full of dragons and destiny. The songs had made her a figure already, even in the green heart of the Reach. Aegon in Dorne, she murmured. Daenerys in the east. 2 dragons, 2 claims. And we are tied to a stag with milk on his breath. The old woman's fingers brushed her arm, unexpectedly gentle. I would see you live, Olenna said. I would see our house rise, if that means uniting the Reach with Dorne under a dragon's wings. Well, our ancestors may twist in their graves, but they are dead. We are not. We must think as they did not. How? Marjorie asked quietly. Dorne and the Reach have hated each other for 1,000 years. We sang songs of burning marches while they sang of poisoned wells. What could tie us together now? Her grandmother's mouth curved in a sly little smile. Why, you could, child, she said. You and perhaps a certain Princess F. Dorne, and a boy who thinks he is his father's second coming. The first Aegon conquered with his sisters. Perhaps this one means to rule with wives. Marjorie stared at her. You cannot be serious, she whispered. The Faith would. The Faith is already sharpening its knives for you, Olenna said. Better to give them a new scandal to gnaw on while we put the pieces where we wish them. Lord Tarly's face had turned to stone. You would have our girl share a husband's bed with a Dornish woman? He demanded. I would have our girl share a realm with her, Olenna answered. Beds are the least of it. Think, Randall. If we and Dorne stand together behind one dragon, what can the rest of the realm do? The north is frozen with its own troubles. The Vale hides behind its mountains. The Riverlands are a graveyard. The west bleeds gold and little else. Only the south still has fat fields and full granaries. United, we would be the heart of whatever new order comes. Marjorie felt something cold and bright coil within her. Herself, in Sunspear's long shadows, with a dark-eyed princess at one side and a violet-eyed king at the other. 2 crowns, 2 lands that had never loved each other forced to learn how. I will go, she said. Tarly looked at her as if she had grown a second head. Olenna looked at her as if she had expected nothing less. Of course you will, her grandmother said tartly. We will send word to King's Landing that you go for your health. The Dornish air is good for the lungs, I have heard. And while you cough delicately into lace kerchiefs, you will listen, as you have always listened, and you will decide if this Aegon is made of straw or steel. And if he is steel? Marjorie asked. Then we will see how he feels about sharing his sword with 2 queens, Olenna Redwine said, and about turning its point north instead of at our throats. They gave Aegon a suite of rooms that opened onto a little courtyard full of orange trees, their blossoms heavy on the air. He stood beneath them at dusk, letting the petals falling from the branches stipple his shoulders like slow white rain. John Connington joined him, boots crunching on tiny fallen fruit. The older man moved more stiffly these days, as if some invisible hand were tightening the tendons in his limbs. The disease ate him quietly, but it ate him. Well, Connington said, you are not dead yet. Another triumph to add to my tally, Aegon replied, leaning against the warm stone wall. I faced down a room full of Dornish nobles and was only mildly threatened. I have not been married, dismembered, or drowned in wine. I should write to Halden and tell him his lessons in diplomacy have borne fruit. He would say you were too hot by half, Connington said. You let them see too much. They would have smelled lies, Aegon said. They have had years to learn the taste of them. Connington studied him. You like the princess. I have spoken with her for half a day, Aegon said. I do not know yet if I like her. I respect her. That much I can say. That is more than many men seem to require, Connington muttered. She is beautiful, I grant. Men have gone mad for less. It is not her beauty, Aegon said. It is the way she watched me, as if I were a blade she was checking for flaws. And did she find any? More than I wished, he admitted. Connington's brow furrowed. You will need her if we mean to hold Dorne, and Dorne if we mean to take the rest. Varys's last letter spoke of King's Landing left headless, of the lion cub surrounded by wolves. If we move quickly, We can be in Storm's End and then at the Blackwater before any other power can solidify. But not without allies. I know, Aegon said. We have the Golden Company. We have what we took in the Stormlands. It is not enough. Dorne will give us spears. And if what we heard in Volantis is true, the Reach can give us fields and men enough to feed them. Cunnington's mouth tightened at the word Reach. You put too much stock in rumors. Rumors kept us alive, Aegon said. We heard of Daenerys Targaryen's dragons in rumors and chased them across half the free cities. We heard of Cersei's folly in rumors and saw it confirmed by Varys' script. We heard in lists that the Tyrells are sick of licking Lannister boots while the Faith sharpens its blades on their pride. If there is a chance to reach out to them, we should take it. Cunnington shook his head. Olenna Tyrell is as dangerous as any dragon. Her son is a fool, but fools have a talent for falling upward. They have the Boy King's favor. They hold the capital's gates. Why would they abandon that for a boy who crawled out of the sea with sellswords at his back and whispers clinging to his name? Because the capital is a powder cask, Aegon said softly. Because Tommen Baratheon has a crown too big for his little head. Because Cersei Lannister cannot hold her tongue or her temper. Because the Faith militant would happily drag another king from his horse and dash his brains out on the steps of the Great September. The Tyrells are gardeners. They plant and prune. They know when a tree is rotten at the root. Cunnington snorted. And you, my prince? Are you so sound in your foundations? No, Aegon said. I am a cutting taken from a dead trunk. But I mean to grow. He turned his face up toward the darkening sky. I have thought on Rhaegar, he said, more in the last months than ever before. I think of the songs they sang of him, the way they speak of his harp and his silver hair, the way they call him noble, gentle, tragic. And I think of the fields burned in his name, the small folk trampled under horses' hooves, the women widowed, the children left fatherless because he stole another man's wife and sparked a war he did not mean to win. You should not speak of your father so, Cunnington said, 2Q. Yukli, who else should? Aegon asked. The world has done enough praising him. If I am to be his heir, I must also be heir to his mistakes. I will not wear his face and pretend not to see the blood that clings to it. Cunnington's hand tightened on the stone. I failed him, he said. You lost a battle, Aegon replied. The rest was Rhaegar's doing. That battle lost him the throne, Cunnington said, and you your birthright. If I had been a better commander, we would never have needed the ships that brought us here, Aegon finished gently. We would have never met Griff. I would have grown up in King's Landing, soft and blind. Would you have preferred that? It would have meant your mother lived, Cunnington whispered. The courtyard quieted around them, as if the trees themselves were listening. I do not know what I would have preferred, Aegon said. I only know what is. We are here. Dorne waits to see what we will do. The Reach watches the horizon. The dragons in the east are still content to roar across a slave's sky. We have a window, small and closing fast. I mean to climb through it if I can. Cunnington studied him for a long moment. You sound like Varys, he said at last. I hope not, Aegon said. I would rather sound like myself. The first time Arianne Martell saw Margaery Tyrell, the Reach Queen was kneeling, her fingers buried in dry earth. It was in the little garden that clung to the back of the Tower of the Sun, where herbs grew stubbornly in carved stone beds despite the heat. Arianne had gone there to walk off the remnants of a very frustrating conversation with her father, full of dots he would not yet connect, names he would not yet speak, only to find a stranger in green and gold bending over one of the beds as if it held secrets. For a moment, Arianne thought one of the servants had let in some noblewoman's daughter from the visiting party ahead of the welcome feast. Then the woman turned, and the afternoon light caught on the circlet of golden roses in her hair. Forgive me, Margaery Tyrell said, the words coming out in a rush. I did not mean to trespass. The servants told me I might walk here, and then I saw the basil and... You are trampling in it? Arianne observed. Margaery looked down. Oh! Her slippers were in fact depopulating an entire patch of basil, little crushed leaves releasing their scent in protest. "I am used to gardens with paths," Marjorie said. "Not ones you must invent as you go. That seems fitting for Dorne." "It is fitting for Sunspear," Aegon replied. "We have always preferred to make our own way, even when it snags at our skirts." She stepped closer, studying the other woman frankly. The songs had not lied. Marjorie had the kind of beauty that made people want to do things for her. Hazel eyes wide and artless, mouth curved in a perpetual near smile. Yet there was a shrewdness in the way she held herself that the songs seldom mentioned. The angle of her shoulders, the way her gaze flicked across the garden and weighed everyone present, even Aegon, as if tallying their uses. "This is your first time in Dorne?" Aegon asked. "It is," Marjorie said. "I have always wanted to see it." Oberyn told such stories. Heat and sand and wine and kisses. She broke off, the smile faltering. "He spoke of it as if it were a lover." "He spoke of everything that way," Aegon said, and the ache behind her ribs surprised her. "Oberyn loved a great many things, and left great many wounds," Marjorie said softly. They stood in silence for a moment among the herbs, the crushed basil scent wrapping around them like a veil. "I did not think you would come," Aegon said. "I expected your father, or perhaps Lord Tarly, not the Rose herself. My grandmother would say that she has roots too deep in the Reach to risk a voyage," Marjorie said. "My father would say that he has duties. I would say that I begged them both to let me go." "Why?" Aegon asked. "Because I have had crowns placed upon my head and snatched away again by men's follies too many times," Marjorie said, her voice so quietly honest that it startled Aegon more than any boast would have. "Because I am tired of waiting for ravens to tell me which direction my life will lurch. Because I wanted to look a dragon in the eye before someone decided I must share his fire." "So you believe he is a dragon?" Aegon said. "I believe he wears the shape of one," Marjorie answered. "Whether there are bones beneath it or straw, I mean to find out. And if there are bones, then he will need flesh around them," Marjorie said. "If he is to stand." Aegon laughed, despite herself. "You speak like a maester," she said. "I have listened to enough of them," Marjorie replied. "They drone on, but if you pick through the droning, you find useful things. About power, about how it is made and unmade, about what crowns are, in truth." "Oh," Aegon tilted her head. "And what are they?" "Stories," Marjorie said. "The same as my grandmother says of honor. Stories about who we are and why we deserve to rule. The boy in there." She inclined her head toward the tower's heart, where Aegon and Dorne were no doubt picking their way through another maze of words. "Has a very good story. Dead parents, lost heir, betrayed by Lannisters, raised in exile, returned to claim what is his. Plays well. People will want to believe it. That is half the battle. And the other half? Steel and bread," Marjorie said. "And beds." "Beds?" Aegon arched a brow. "I had heard the Reach was prudish. You surprise me, Lady Marjorie." "I have been wed 3 times, Marjorie said dryly. "It would be a poor queen indeed who did not understand that beds can change kingdoms as surely as battles. The first Aegon took 2 sisters to wife and bent the realm around them. Perhaps this one thinks to do the same." Heat flashed along Aegon's spine. "You seem very certain he means to wed twice," she said. "I am certain my grandmother means for us to consider it," Marjorie replied. "She speaks of uniting Dorne and the Reach as if it were a simple graft in a vineyard. Cut here, splice there, bind the branches together and hope they do not poison each other." "And what do you think?" Aegon asked. Marjorie smiled, but there was no softness in it. "I think I have shared a husband with worse than a Dornish woman," she said. "I think I would rather spend my days contending with someone who understands what it means to live beneath a hot sun than with a Lannister. I think that if the choice is between being one of 3 queens in a realm that might survive, or the only queen in a city burning around me, I know which path I prefer." "You speak as if this is already decided," Aegon said. Nothing is decided, Marjorie said. We are only in the same garden, that is all. But gardens have a way of making seeds sprout where you least expect them. She reached down and gently freed her skirts from the bruised basil. Will you walk with me? She asked. I would not mind a guide who knows which plants bite. Aegon regarded her for a moment. Tyrell roses and Martell suns and Targaryen dragons, all tumbled together in a tangle she had not chosen. Very well, she said at last. But if you step on the mint, the gardeners will mutiny, and not even your grandmother can save you. They met in the long hall that overlooked the sea, 3 figures and a chair. Prince Doran sat in his accustomed place, shawls folded neat as always, his hands resting on them like pale birds. To his right stood Aegon, straight-backed, in orange silk that matched the afternoon light. To his left Marjorie Tyrell, in green so deep it was almost black, roses threaded through her hair. Aegon Targaryen stood opposite, with Jon Connington at his shoulder and 2 captains of the Golden Company at his back. The windows behind him were open, letting in the crash of waves and the cry of distant gulls. We have spoken separately, Doran Martell said. Now we will speak together. It is time to see what sort of knot we can tie, or whether it is only a tangle, Marjorie murmured. Some tangles hold fast, Aegon said. Ask any sailor. Aegon said nothing. He looked from one woman to the other, and then to Doran, weighing them. In King's Landing, Doran went on. The Lannisters clutch at power with bleeding hands. The boy king is surrounded by enemies he does not understand. The faith has its claws in his crown. The small council is dead or scattered. The lions are not what they were. And the stag never was, Marjorie said softly. In the east, Doran continued, ignoring her. Daenerys Stormborn gathers dragons and titles. She is young still, but young things grow quickly. If she turns her eyes west in earnest, she will be formidable. Between lion and dragon, the south will be trampled if it stands alone. I have waited too long to see Dorne's spears simply break beneath another's war. He leaned forward, the slight movement costing him something. So, we will not stand alone. His gaze fixed on Aegon. My terms, he said, are these. Dorne will acknowledge you as Rhaegar's son, and as Elaya's. It will lend its spears and ships to your cause. It will march when you march, bleed when you bleed. In return, you will swear, here and now, that Dorne shall be ruled by its own princes as it has been since Nymeria, that its laws and customs shall stand, that no hand of yours shall ever seek to force it to heel like a dog, as the dragons of old once tried and failed to do. That much I would swear freely, Aegon said. I have no wish to repeat old mistakes. And, Doran said, and now his eyes slid to his daughter, you will take Aegon Martell to wife. Aegon drew breath. No surprise showed on his face. He had known this was coming. But something like relief flickered there, too, and Aegon felt an unexpected easing in her chest. Gladly, he said, if she will have me. I will consider it, Aegon said coolly. You will wed, Doran said. We will consider other things. The corner of her mouth twitched. What of the reach? Aegon asked. You spoke of not standing alone. 2 pillars hold steadier than 1. And 3 steadier than 2, Marjorie said. Aegon looked at her. You came prepared to share, she observed. I came prepared to survive, Marjorie replied. Sometimes those are the same thing. House Tyrell, Doran said, has sent us a queen with eyes and ears. They are not fools. They know the lion's claws are dulled and that the faith's teeth are sharp. They have no desire to be caught between. They see in you, Prince Aegon, both a threat and an escape. In me, Aegon asked. Or in my name? In both, Marjorie said. You are not the only one with stories, Your Grace. The title slipped out, light and testing. Aegon watched Aegon's shoulders tighten, watched the flash in his eyes. He had worn the thought of that title close. She realized, like a blade beneath his shirt. To hear it spoken aloud was to draw steel. If the Reach abandons Tommen for you, Marjorie went on. "It does so at a cost. We have bled for that boy. My own reputation has bled for him. We cannot break that oath lightly and expect the realm to simply applaud. There must be a tale to tell that makes sense of it. A tale strong enough that small folk will forgive us for changing banners once more. Traitors are seldom forgiven," John Connington said darkly. "Then let us not look like traitors," Marjorie replied. "Let us look like saviors." "Your plan?" Doran asked. Marjorie inclined her head toward Aegon. "You will take the Stormlands," she said. "Not BR. Utilely, not with fire and terror, but cleanly. You will be generous to those who bend the knee. You will be seen to drive off raiders, punish bandits, lift levies that have grown too heavy under Lannister taxes. You will send food to villages that have starved for war. Songs will be sung of it before we ever move." "And you?" Aegon asked. "I will go back," Marjorie said. "To King's Landing at first. I will plant doubts among my own. I will whisper of Cersei's madness, of Tommen's weakness, of how the lion's jaws invite the dragon's fire. I will remind my father that his army stalled outside the city walls while the spider walked through them and slit the hand's throat, that he is being made a fool. I will let it be known that there is another way. That way being through you," Aerion said. Marjorie smiled. "Through all of us. And when the Reach is ready?" Aegon asked quietly. "Then we will make an announcement," Marjorie said. "Publicly, dramatically, the Queen of the Reach, the Princess of Dorne, and the last dragon standing together. We will say that we have chosen to bind our lands to one another, not with swords but with hands. That we will marry you, both of us, in the sight of gods and men. You will be the knot that ties the South into one rope, and with it we will haul the realm away from the cliff's edge. The faith will choke on it," Connington said. "The faith choked on kings who bedded their own sisters and still they knelt," Marjorie answered. "They will howl. Let them. They howl already. Better they snarl at us for polygamy than drag all of us beneath the wheel. And if they will not anoint such a union, then we will find another way to place a crown on your head." Doran's eyes had gone distant, as if seeing some long-ago memory. "When Aegon the First took his sisters to wife," he said slowly, "Dorne stayed apart. We would not bend. We fought and burned and bled until we learned that we could not be broken without breaking the realm. Only when a dragon came to us with an open hand did we join." His gaze sharpened again, pinning Aegon. "Perhaps this time we will lead," he said. "Let the rest of the realm rage. Let them call us heathens and sinners. They always have. What matters is whether we endure." Aegon stood very still. "You ask much," he said at last. "2 wives, 2 great houses, the wrath of the faith, the suspicion of the realm. You ask me to echo my ancestor and risk his sins as well as his victories. What do you want?" Aerion asked. He turned to her. "Justice," he said simply. "For my mother, for those whose bones paved my path. A chance for the realm to be more than a collection of feuds. To stop the wheel, if I can, before it crushes more children. I want to be better than Rhaegar." "Then be better," she said. "Do what he did not. Think first of the realm you mean to build, and only after of the songs they will sing." "And if the songs name you bigamist and heretic?" Connington demanded. "Then let them," Aegon said. "If I can keep them from naming me butcher, it will be enough." He looked from Aerion to Marjorie and back again. 2 sons circling him, one fierce, one cool. 2 lands with long memories of blood between them. "Will you stand with me?" he asked. Aerion held his gaze. Marjorie did the same. "Yes," they said together. The war for the South did not look at first like war. It looked like caravans, long strings of mules and oxen bearing sacks of grain from the Reach into the Stormlands, escorted by knights in half-worn cloaks who bore both Rose and Sun upon their shields. It looked like new levies of Dornish archers drilling alongside stormlords beneath tattered banners that had once flown for Baratheon alone. It looked like ships in the red wine colors shadowing Golden Company galleys along the coast, their flags dipping in silent acknowledgement. In village after village from Night Song to Summerhall, People woke to find that the men in strange leather armor who had taken the castle 2 nights before were now handing out bread from the Lord's storehouses, under the watchful eyes of women in orange veils who noted every name. "What dragon does this?" a farmer asked once, staring at the loaf in his rough hands. "The one who needs you alive, not dead beneath his horse," the woman with the list replied. When raiders came, bands of outlaws fattened by years of chaos, or iron-born stragglers who had drifted too far south, the new Lord of Griffin's Roost was often waiting. John Cunnington rode at the head of his men, as if he were trying to carve the disease from his own veins with every stroke of his sword. Sells-words in Golden Company colors fell in beside Stormland knights with mismatched armor but keen eyes. Between them they drove off the wolves snapping at the realm's flanks. Songs began, of course. They always did. A boy with a lute in Pennybridge made a tune about a dragon who brought rain instead of fire. A girl in a tavern at Bronzegate sang of a purple-eyed prince who walked among the tents to ask the names of children and remember them. In the marches, where Dorne and the Reach had once hacked at each other for sport, an old blind man told anyone who would listen that he had heard the horses of Dorne and the horses of the Reach drinking from the same stream. "Lies," someone scoffed. "Maybe," the old man said, "but they are the right sort of lies." In King's Landing, the High Sparrow frowned at the rumors. He prayed more fervently. He sharpened his words for the next sermon. In the Red Keep, Cersei Lannister paced her gilded cage and spat when the name Aegon came up, even as she clung tighter to the boy who wore the crown her father had died to protect. Tommen listened, wide-eyed and silent. Marjorie flitted through the courts and corridors with smiles and gentle words and delicate coughs into her handkerchief. She spoke soothingly to Tommen of kittens and songs. She spoke more firmly to Mace about the ways the lion had humiliated him, about the slight of being kept outside the city walls while others chose the hand. She spoke in murmurs to the Tyrell knights who had followed her from the Reach, painting pictures of another king who listened, another throne that might not tilt beneath them. "Traitors," Cersei hissed when one of her spies whispered to her of it. "Vipers. I should have had her head years ago." Instead, she sent ravens, frantic and foul, demanding that her father's bannermen stand firm. Many did, enough did not. When word at last came that Aegon's host, Dornish spears, Reach banners, Golden Company shields, Stormland levies, had crossed the Blackwater at a dozen points, the city trembled. "They will sack us," begged a butcher before the September, "like in my grandsire's tales." "Only if you have been wicked," the High Sparrow replied. "Pray. The Seven will judge." When Mace Tyrell demanded to know what his daughter meant to do, Marjorie smiled serenely. "Pray as well, father," she said. "But while you are on your knees, be ready to stand." The battle for King's Landing never truly became one. There were skirmishes outside the walls, yes. Some fools always chose to test their steel even when the odds screamed against them. A red-cloaked captain died beneath a Dornish spear at the Mud Gate. His men scattered by the sudden sight of rose and sun banners snapping together in the river wind. A brave young knight of the Kingsguard, Ser Loras's cousin perhaps, charged a Golden Company phalanx and fell with his horse screaming, skewered on pikes that glittered like teeth. But most of the fighting was done without a sword ever leaving its sheath. Half the city watch had been quietly turned in the months before, coins and promises working more efficiently than fear. When the time came, gold cloaks opened the gates to men they had been told were saviors. The Red Keep's cooks found themselves suddenly confronted by Dornish spearmen in their kitchens, politely explaining that the day's meal would be delayed while they secured the royal family. In the throne room, Tommen Baratheon sat on his chair and hugged his crown as if it were a lion's cub that might bite him if he loosened his grip. Cersei stood before the Iron Throne, dressed in red and gold, her hair grown back in a pale lion's mane that did nothing to soften the desperation in her eyes. She looked very small, Aegon thought, as he walked into the hall that had haunted his dreams since boyhood, smaller than she had seemed in the tales. "You?" she spat when she saw him, as if he were something stuck to her boot. "I have seen your like before. Pretenders, bastards, monsters made by my enemies' dreams. You will not take this from my son." It was never yours to give him, Aegon said. Cersei's face twisted. The usurper's line is not mine, Aegon said. Nor, if half the tales of your twin are true, is it your son's. But I do not come to lay Jaime's bastards at your feet, Lady Cersei. I come to end a war that began when you and your kin chose my family's blood as the price for your own power. Her hand flew to her throat as if reaching for a necklace she no longer wore. You will not touch him, she said, looking back at Tommen, who had begun to cry. I will kill you first. You are not who I fear, Aegon said quietly. Nor is he. He looked at the boy, red gold hair, plump cheeks, snot running down his face, and felt only a dull, distant pity. He had pictured a monster in this hall. Instead, he found a child. Tommen, he said, do you want this? The boy sniffled. I want my mother. She will be sent somewhere safe, Aegon said. If she allows it. She will not, Cersei hissed. Then you may have her here, he said. In a cell beneath the sept, perhaps. The Faith will be glad of the company. Her eyes went wide. For just a moment, he saw the flash of real fear. You would give me to them? She whispered. You lit the fire beneath their feet, he said. You armed them. You made them into a sword and set them swinging. Did you think that sword would never turn? He turned then, not to her but to Marjorie, who stood at his side, her gown a pale echo of the green of Highgarden's fields. You have stood my enemy, he said. Yet you are as much a victim of this game as any. What do you propose we do with the boy and his mother? The hall collectively held breath. Even Cersei stared at Marjorie as if seeing her for the first time. Marjorie's hazel eyes were cool as cut glass. Tommen is no threat, she said. He is a gentle soul who never wanted a crown. I would send him to Old Town. Let him don gray, if he wishes it, and spend his days among books and bells, or to some quiet sept on a hillside, where he may feed chickens and pray. As for his mother, she looked at Cersei, and something hard flickered. I would see her shipped west to Casterly Rock. Let her kin decide how to handle the shame she has brought upon their house. Far from the capital, a murmur swept the gathered lords. Exile, not execution, not the heads on spikes that some had expected. Mercy, someone breathed. Justice, someone else muttered. Cersei stared at Marjorie as if she could tear her apart with her gaze alone. You think exile a kindness? She said. You think I will wither on some rock while you bed? She could not seem to find a word that would encompass the woman beside her and the man before her, and the crown that hovered between. I think, Marjorie said, that the realm has had enough blood spilled for our quarrels. I would not add yours to the river if I do not have to. So magnanimous, Cersei sneered. So noble. You will choke on your own pity, girl. You and your Dornish whore and yo. You are painted prince. Hoda stepped forward at that, great axe humming low. Arian's hand shot out like a whip. Enough, she said. You have lost more than a throne here, Lannister. You would do well to hold what dignity you can. Cersei looked at her then, really looked, and Arian saw when the recognition hit. Oberyn's daughter, Alya's niece, the eye of all her sister's pain. You, Cersei whispered, all of this dragon, this sham, it is your doing. You Martells never forget a wound, do you? You'll wear that girl's dying for another 100 years, if you can. You'll set the whole world on fire for her. If Alya's bones could rise and walk, they would do more for the world than you ever have, Arian said. Aegon felt the old familiar trembling in his chest, the echo of a skull cracking, a baby's cry cut off. He looked at Cersei Lannister and saw the living face of everything that had been taken from him. He closed his hand into a fist until his nails hurt. My mother died because you wanted a crown, he said softly. Today, I choose to make your son live without one because I want something more. And what is that? She spat. A realm that survives the storms that are coming, he said. Take her, he ordered, and Goldcloaks moved, uncertain but obeying. Treat her gently. I will not have her harmed. Send word to Casterly Rock that their lioness returns to Claude. Tell them Aegon Targaryen sends his regards and expects their loyalty or their silence. Nothing louder. When they dragged her from the hall, she fought like a cat. She cursed him in every way she knew, and by the time she was gone his ears were ringing with the venom of it. Tommen sobbed on the throne. Aegon walked up the long steps, each one feeling like it carried every choices he had made since leaving Essos, and stopped below the Iron Throne. It was uglier than he had imagined. A jagged madness of melted swords, uncomfortable to look at, worse to sit on, designed to remind every king that power was pain. He turned his back on it. In the name of the people of King's Landing, he said, voice pitched to Carrie, I invite you to witness a coronation, not of a boy who never asked for a crown, but of someone who has crossed sea and war to claim it. If there are any here who would deny my right, let them speak now, or hold their peace and judge me by what I do after. The silence was deep and wary. Then the High Septon shuffled forward, his bare feet whispering on the stone. The bells on his staff chimed softly. The faith does not, he began. Your faith set itself above the throne, Aegon said. It armed itself, played at war in the streets. It imprisoned queens and lords. It burned small folk for sins it named at whim. I will not kneel to it. I will not loosen the swords of the seven on my own neck. He met the old man's eyes. If you will anoint me without demanding that I discard the wives I have chosen, the policies I must adopt, the mercy I mean to show, then I will accept your blessing, he said. If you will not, then keep your oil. I will wear this crown by the will of the people and the strength of the South, and we will see whose prayers are answered in the end. Gasps, whispers. The High Septon's mouth worked soundlessly, like a fish. At least take the boy down, he said at last, voice trembling. That throne. Tommen Baratheon? Aegon said, turning. Will you surrender your crown? The boy looked between him and Marjorie, bewildered. Then he looked at his own hands, fat fingers clenched around gold. Will I have to sit here? He asked. No, Aegon said. Never again, unless you wish it. Tommen swallowed, then took the crown from his head. His hair sprang up beneath it, flattened by sweat. My mother says you're a monster, he whispered. I have been many things in many mouths, Aegon said. I would rather be remembered as something else. Go with Ser. He looked around. Ser Garland. Will you take him? Garland Tyrell bowed. Gladly, your grace. The title slipped out as naturally as breath. A murmur rippled through the hall at it. Aegon turned back to the throne. Burn it, he said. The word dropped like a stone into a well. Men stared, women gaped. The High Septon clutched his staff until his knuckles went white. You cannot. He began. I can, Aegon said. I will. This thing was made by Aegon the First from the swords of enemies. It has cut every king who has sat upon it. It has seen the realm bleed and demanded more. I would rather sit on wood than on this monument to arrogance. Take it down. Melt it. Make plowshares of it, or prison bars, or nails to hold bridges together. Let the symbol of rule in this city be something that does not hunger. You will anger the dragons of old, someone whispered. Let them be angry, Aegon said. They had their time. This is ours. He felt eyes on him from the side and met Arianne's gaze. Then Marjorie's. There was fire in one, a cool assessing light in the other. Both nodded almost imperceptibly. The Iron Throne stayed where it was that day. Tradition was not so easily melted as steel, but the command had been spoken, and word of it ran through the city like a new sort of fire. Later, when craftsmen in Old Town drew sketches for a different sort of chair, one plain and high-backed, carved of weirwood and oak, with the seven-pointed star and the three-headed dragon inlaid together in mother of pearl, it would be remembered that Aegon VI had been the first to question the old spiked monster. Some would call that madness. Others would call it wisdom. All would call it different. Daenerys Targaryen came west at last on wings and wind and war. By the time her ships sighted Dragonstone's brooding silhouette, the South had already begun to reshape itself. Rumors came to her as she crossed. of a boy with her brother's jawline and her niece's eyes sitting king in the Red Keep, flanked by a Dornish princess and a Reach Rose, of an iron throne threatened with hammer and furnace, of Queen's Hale and Hole where she had expected to find corpses, of a realm less broken than she had been told. They say he freed the small folk from some of the worst taxes, Missandei told her one night, by the flicker of a lantern in her cabin, and that he allows the faith to preach but not to arm, that he has sent grain north, that he has outlawed the burning of heretics without royal consent. They say many things, Tyrion Lannister added dryly from his corner, cup in hand. They sing louder than they did of Joffrey, that much is true, but songs are only songs. I would like to see the accounts. You would, Dany said. She stood by the porthole, watching Drogon's shadow sweep occasionally over the waves as he glided alongside the fleet. Rhaegal and Viserion wheeled above in wide arcs, their roars distant thunder. Is he true? She asked softly. This Aegon. True in what sense? Tyrion asked. True in blood? I have my doubts. Varys is very good at finding boys, less so at proving pedigrees. True in intent? Perhaps. Someone has taught him the tricks I once tried to whisper in my nephew's ear. Nephew, she echoed. If he is Rhaegar's son, he is my brother's child. My blood. If he is Rhaegar's son, Tyrion said. And if he is not, Jorah Mormont said from the shadows near the door. He is still wearing your name, Khaleesi. Your father's, your brother's, your house's. That alone is theft enough. Dany's hand tightened on the window's edge. The glass was cold despite the summer air. When my house fell, she said, when my brother and I wandered from city to city being spat upon, did anyone spare a thought to truth, to whether Viserys was fit to bear the name of king? They laughed at him. They laughed at me. Now that there is a crown to take, hands spring up from nowhere, each with a dragon painted on it. You have actual dragons, Tyrion pointed out. That still gives you an edge, does it? She asked. Will I be any better than Aegon the First if I come to this land with fire when they already have a king who gives them bread? That depends on what you do after the fire, Tyrion said, and on whether he is as good as his songs. She looked out at the sky. Drogon banked, his massive wings carving arcs in the clouds. For all her worries, the sight of him still sent a thrill through her every time. There is another thing, Missandei said softly. The prophecy you spoke of, the 3 heads of the dragon. Dany thought of the words whispered in shadowed halls, of house words and old scrolls. The dragon has 3 heads, a king, a queen, another, a dragon, a wolf, a lion. She had never been sure. She thought of Aegon, whom she had never met, sitting flanked by 2 women who had lost as much to the game as she had, of the way the South's banners now braided sun and rose and dragon together. The world does not like one, she murmured. It prefers 3. 3 brothers, 3 judges, 3 heads. They make better stories. Stories again, Tyrion said. We are back to those. Stories move people, she said. I learned that in Slaver's Bay, it is not enough to be right. One must be believed. She turned from the window. I will not be another invader, she said. I am coming home. If I must fight a pretender to do so, I will. But if there is a way to do more than add 1 more corpse to the pile my father built, I will find it. And if he will not bend? Jorah asked. Then he will burn, she said quietly. But I will offer him the chance not to. They met not in a throne room, but on a hill outside the city. King's Landing lay below, sprawled and smoky. Its walls were patched where wildfires had eaten them during one war, reinforced where new fear had demanded it during another. The Blackwater glittered, sluggish and foul, under a hazy sun. Above, 3 dragons circled in wary loops, their shadows sliding over the camp like omens. Drogon landed first, where the ground had been flattened and cleared by trembling men half an hour earlier. The shock of his impact shook dust from the nearest trees. Rhaegal and Viserion settled further back, watched by lines of archers who knew that their arrows would do little but felt better with string under their fingers. Daenerys slid from Drogon's back with the ease of long practice. She wore no crown, only a simple circlet of dark steel, her hair braided in the fashion of the Dothraki, with bells that chimed softly when she moved. Her colors were black and red, her cloak pinned with a three-headed dragon. Aegon watched her come, standing between Aerion and Marjorie, Jon Connington at his back. He had refused to bring the full host. This was meant to be a parley, not a show of force. Yet the plain was ringed nonetheless with spears and shields, with banners that fluttered nervously whenever Drogon shifted. She was smaller than he had imagined. That thought startled him. He had expected a giant from the stories. The breaker of chains, the mother of dragons, the Stormborn who had walked unburned from her husband's pyre. Instead, he saw a young woman whose hands were calloused more from reins than from swords, whose eyes held more weariness than fire. When she reached them, she stopped a few paces away. The space between them hummed like a plucked string. "Aegon Targaryen," she said. "Daenerys Targaryen," he replied. "Stormborn," she added. "Called the sixth of his name," he said. "Some might dispute that," she said. "Some might," he agreed. For a moment, neither spoke. "You wear his face," she said at last. "Rhaegar's." "So I am told," he said. "You wear our house." "So I am," she said. "Evil." "Re it when no one else remembered what it meant." "I wore it when everyone lied about what it meant," he said. Aerion cleared her throat delicately. "Shall we respond only in riddles?" she asked. "We could be here until the others take us." The strange northern word sat oddly in the Dornish air. "Others?" Daenerys asked, glancing at her. "The dead," Aerion said. "The cold. The thing the North keeps coughing about while we play at crowns. My father spoke of it before he died. A letter from the wall from some snow. He said if the realm does not come together, it will not matter whose name we carve on the last stone." Daenerys' eyes flicked back to Aegon. "You have read such letters?" she asked. "I have," he said. "From Jon Snow, the Lord Commander, and later the man they named King in the North. He speaks of white shadows and walking corpses, of a king of ice who brings winter behind him. I would have sent men north already if the south were not so fragile." "You have men to spare?" she asked. "With all this," she gestured vaguely at the city, the camp, the dragons overhead. "I have men who would rather fight the dead than their brothers," he said. "If I can give them that chance, I will." "You speak as if you mean it," she said. "I do," he replied. "Do you?" She smiled then, sharp as broken glass. "I freed cities who spat in my face," she said. "I burned the Master's armies. I broke their chains. I watched men who had never taken a step unbidden choose to stand and fight for their own lives. Do you think I would balk at an army of dead? Or at snow? I was born in a storm that tore a palace apart. I have lived through worse than cold. And yet," he said, "we stand here, heat on our faces, alive still, because that storm was not this one." Her gaze flicked to his queens, taking them in, the sunburst cloak, the rose at the throat. "They say you married twice," she said. "That you declared yourself heir to Aegon the Conqueror in bed as well as in court." He did not look away. "I married Dorne and the Reach," he said. "The women were the gifts that came with those lands. I am grateful for both." Marjorie's lips curved. Arion's did too, but her gaze stayed watchful. "You speak as if they were dowries," Daenerys said. "They are more than that," he said. "They advise me, they challenge me. They keep me from thinking that a crown entitles me to anything but responsibility. They are my queens, not my trophies." "And you think that makes it less an insult to the gods?" she asked. "I think the gods have seen far worse from our house," he said. "I have no desire to add to that ledger. But if Nymeria could take 10 husbands and be remembered as a hero, I see no reason I may not take 2 wives and be remembered as something else." "You presume you will be remembered at all," she said. "Yes," he said. I presume that you will as well. The question is how. They stood there, dragons wheeling above them, queens at their sides, the fate of a realm balanced on the edge of a conversation. I came to Westeros to claim what was stolen from my family, Daenerys said. To sit the throne that was my father's and my brother's. To make a better world than the one they ruined. So did I, he said. Only one of us can sit it, she said. I am melting it, he said. She blinked. You what? She asked. Melt it, Aegon said. Burn it, break it, pick your word. He wants a different chair. What will you sit on? Daenerys asked, as if this were the most preposterous part of the idea. Something less likely to cut me, he said. Something that does not stare every lord in the realm in the face and remind him that he is only as safe as the last man to surrender to him. You would erase our history, she said. I would make room for a future, he replied. She stared at him for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. You are mad, she said. Perhaps more than I am. Perhaps, he agreed, smiling crookedly. Tyrion Lannister stepped forward then, hands raised in a gesture of cautious peace. If I might, he said, suggest a compromise? We are arguing over a chair while the snow gathers in the north. Might I gently propose that we construct as many chairs as are needed later, when we are not all dead? Daenerys looked at him with fond exasperation. Aegon looked at him with wary curiosity. You have a plan? Daenerys asked. I always have a plan, Tyrion said. They seldom survive contact with reality, but that has never stopped me. His gaze swept them both. You are both Targaryens, he said. In blood or in name, it hardly matters. The world will see you as one house regardless. The prophecy speaks of 3 heads. You have 3 dragons up there with nothing better to do than chase each other in circles. You have 3 great powers in this camp. Dorne, the Reach, and whatever ragged assortment of freedmen and Dothraki and unsullied my lady has brought with her. You have 3 rulers. 1 king, 1 queen, and 1 queen twice over. Perhaps we might lean into that number rather than fight it. You suggest a council? Aegon asked. A shared rule. I suggest, Tyrion said, that until the threat in the north is dealt with, we act not as rivals but as a joint regency for a realm that does not yet exist. Aegon holds the south. Daenerys holds the east and her armies. The north and the Vale may follow if they see unity rather than division. We form a grand alliance. We march north together. We put every dragon and every spear between the living and the dead. If we win, then, when the snows melt, you may argue over who sits where. And if we lose? Daenerys asked. Then we will not have wasted time stabbing one another while the dark came, Tyrion said. Jon Snow spoke of such an alliance, Aegon murmured. Addition in his letters. He begged for it. And you ignored him, Aegon said. I delayed, Aegon said. There is a difference. One I mean to rectify. Daenerys was quiet. Drogon's shadow slid over her, then over him, as the great beast circled. I will not be your subordinate, she said at last. If we do this, we do it as equals. You are not my king, nor are you mine, he said. If we do this, we do it as something new, a triad. What did the maesters call those arrangements where 3 lords share a river's tolls? A folly, Tyrion supplied. A compromise, Aegon said. Daenerys looked at Aerion, and Marjorie, at Aegon again. You would keep your wives, she said. Your alliances. Yes, he said. They are my strength. And what of me? She asked. What am I in this arrangement? Another queen at your side? Your rival across a council table? You are a dragon, he said. You are the fire that will keep this realm from freezing. You are my cousin if the tales are true. My last living kin who remembers what our house was before it fell. I would rather have you at my side than in my way. You would not take me to wife, she said, eyebrow lifting. He hesitated. The thought had been whispered to him in the weeks since he had learned she sailed. Varys had written of it. Some old men in Dorne had muttered about restoring the proper ways of Valyria. 3 queens for a king, 3 heads, 3 knots tied so tight no realm could unravel them. He thought of Arianne's hand in his, calloused and sure, of Marjorie's laughter when she outmaneuvered a lord twice her age, of Daenerys' dragons splitting the sky. "No," he said, "I will not ask that of you. We have seen what our house's marriages do when they turn inward too much. I will not drag you into that out of convenience. If we must bind ourselves, let it be with vows we all can live with, not ones that will strangle us in the years to come." Daenerys studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded once, sharply. "Good," she said. "I had already decided to refuse, but it pleases me that you did not ask." "So," Tyrion said cheerfully into the pause, "shall we save the world together?" Arianne looked north, where the sky was faintly darker, as if some distant chill already stained it. "I have no wish to freeze," she said, "nor to see Dorne buried beneath a snow it was never meant to bear. If the price of keeping the sun is sharing it, so be it." Marjorie's gaze was thoughtful, already calculating. "The Reach will follow where its bread is buttered," she said, "so long as our fields are not trampled to mud. If marching north means fewer wars in the south afterward, my grandmother will call it a bargain." Daenerys closed her eyes briefly, as if listening to some voice only she could hear. The rush of wings, the crackle of distant fire, the faint echo of children crying in the dark. When she opened them, they were very calm. "Very well," she said. "We will unite. For now, we will show this realm that dragons can cooperate as well as burn. You will send men north. I will send dragons. We will stand together on whatever wall or field Jon Snow chooses. And afterward, Aegon said, we will see what world remains to argue over." They clasped hands then, dragon to dragon, their fingers closing around the fragile possibility between. Men watching from the lines did not cheer. The moment was too strange for that. But word of it sped through camps and cities like a swift, shy thing. The king with 2 queens, and the queen with 3 dragons, had chosen to share a cause. In the villages of the Reach, farmers spoke of it over bread and wine, shrugging and hoping their sons would not be taken. In the hills of Dorne, shepherds nodded and said that the North's cold was none of their concern. But if the prince thought it was, they would follow. In the alleyways of King's Landing, small folk who had known nothing but war their whole lives whispered that perhaps, this time, the highborn might kill something other than each other. Far to the north, in a hall rebuilt from ashes, a man named Snow, now called Stark, received 2 ravens bearing the same message in different hands. He read them both, smiled a little at the differences, and then sent them to be pinned on the wall beside an older letter he had written and never expected to see answered. "The South wakes," he said to the men gathered around his table. "About damn time. The long night was coming still. No alliance, no wedding, no clever plan could halt the march of ancient cold. But when it came, it would find a realm not entirely broken. A South held together by knots of sun and rose and dragon woven tighter than they had ever been before. It would find Aegon VI with his 2 queens beside him, his banners braided from 3 lands that had once been enemies. It would find Daenerys, her dragons roaring defiance into the storm. It would find, standing between the living and the dead, not a chair of melted swords, but people who had, for a foolish, fragile moment, chosen to build something together rather than tear it down. In the stories that would be told later, by maesters with ink-stained fingers, by grandmothers by their hearths, by singers who plucked strings in crowded inns, some details would be lost, others embellished. They would argue over who had the better claim, who had given the greater speech, whose banners flew at the front. But all the tales would agree on one thing. The day a dragon prince united Dorne and the Reach before the mother of dragons ever set foot on Westerosi soil, the wheel that had ground the realm for centuries began, at last, to crack.